What is going on, guys? This is Versus All Gaming with my review of Strike the Blood episode 22, and this episode, it was definitely interesting because we got some nice little twists here and we got to see a pretty cool familiar. So the episode, it starts off with us on this boat, and we see that the crew on here, they have been killed by Ko, and we see now that his body is definitely breaking apart, and now he has to hurry up and help out the Wiseman. Otherwise, he won't last much longer because he actually does want to become, human again. Because that right here is the reason for everything. He wanted to help out this Wiseman, help him achieve this perfect body and go back to his original form, so that he could give him the other half that's missing from him. And we see now that he is on this boat and he took out this entire crew, and that right there was very sad. But now we go to Nagisa and Yukina, and we see that Yukina here has to go back to see what she was feeling, to check it out, because she wanted to make sure that, it wasn't her mind playing tricks on her, but she was sensing the real thing. So she actually tells Nagisa here that she had left something and she wanted to go back and get it. But we see where she does go. She actually meets up with Conan. And so they're talking, and we actually noticed that Conan, she actually sensed something that she had not seen in a very long time. It was very familiar to her, but she cannot pinpoint what it was. And we see now that Ko, he's already there, and of course he actually wants to use Conan to be the medium for Wiseman. And Conan here actually had remembered him pretty easily, and of course she remembered that attack that he did on the monastery where he killed everybody except for her, of course, because if he killed her, then she would not be here now to tell the story. And so of course she was saying that if she was not around other people, then they'll all be safe. So she already ran off, and Yukina here was actually going to go after her, but Ko, he had used his hand to grab a car and he threw it at her. And not only that, he also, used the metal in his body to extend it toward her. And of course, we don't see them fight, but clearly, something happened between them. And we have Conan here who had went to the back of the ship where Ko had appeared. But now we go to Kojo and Nina, and we see that there are parts of the metal that are made of the Wiseman. And Nina here actually gets this idea, and we see now that she removed that cord that was in Asagi's body, and she uses that to try to get back her original form, but it doesn't work. And she makes this copy of Asagi here with a much larger chest, of course, and this tan. And it was definitely hilarious how Kojo was going to get a nosebleed when he noticed her chest. But then we have Natsuki here who had appeared, and she already knew what was going on, and Kojo had wanted to help them out, but sadly, she couldn't do that because it was too far away, and we all know what's going on with her, so clearly, she cannot be that far from the city. But luckily, she had the backup plan, and we actually go to this airship that is made by La Folia and her family. And I gotta say, I really miss La Folia. I do wish her character could come back, but it was definitely nice seeing her again, even though it was a hologram. But right before Kojo had left, we have the cat and Sayaka, who actually the real one this time, which surprised me. We have Kojo going to them, and he actually tripped and he grabbed Sayaka's chest, and he kept his hand there. He kept handling them for a while actually. And of course, he was thinking that it wasn't a real one, but it turned out to be. And that right there was just so freaking hilarious. I was surprised that she was dressed like that. But we see now that the cat sensei, as Kojo called her, she actually finished repairing Yukina's weapon, so he was actually able to take it to her. And now we see that the way that he's gonna get there, it's not on this airship actually, it's on this new prototype that they're working on that actually looks like a missile when it's actually an airship. So that right there is very awesome. But now we see that Kana here, she actually realized that this person Ko, he's not really a human, because she was asking him all these questions like who is he, where was he born, where is he from, and all this other stuff, but he had no idea. So it turns out that he's nothing more than a homunculus that the Wiseman has made and gave him the desire of being, I want to be a perfect human, so that way, he could manipulate him. And that right there, is very interesting and surprising actually, because I actually thought that, he actually was a human, or at least at some point he was. But now we have Ko here, who gets very angry and it goes to attack Kanan. And luckily, we have Yukina here, who actually arrives at time to protect her. And we see that even though she doesn't have a spear, she has like this special kind of like metal weapon that she can use, to defend off stuff. And that right there was pretty freaking awesome. And so now with like Kojo appearing, because we see that Ko here had made all these like metal clones out of nowhere, we see that Kojo easily took them out. And it was hilarious how Yukina here was kind of like freaking out. And we see that that she thought hitting him on the chest. And also, not only did like Kojo here ride on that missile looking aircraft, but also Nina as well. And even Yukina was like wondering like who she was, especially about her chest as well. Everybody was like questioning her chest, because we all know that Asagi, her chest isn't that big. So clearly, it was definitely shocking to see her look this way. And now we see that Ko here, he's actually, very angry to see them all, especially Nina. And we see that at one point he actually dropped this skull, and it's part of Wiseman. And we see now that Wiseman planned all this time. It was actually to absorb it in this seawater, because Wiseman blood is made out of these precious metals, and the seawater, it actually has this like precious metal inside of it. And so now, because of that, we see now that he was able to obtain this like massive golden form, even though it was not perfect at all. It was like a monster looking thing. And so right when he went to attack the boat, because clearly it's going to do a lot of damage to it, Kojo here, he actually saved everybody by turning the boat into this mist by using the power of of his later familiar that we saw in the last arc. But because he had saved everyone, he did not save himself. And we see now that because of that, he actually he actually will turn into metal. And now, of course, Yukina here was definitely, kind of worried, because even though, he's not immortal, because he wasn't killed, he cannot come back. So he was actually going to be frozen in that state forever. But now we see that Nagisa, we actually see that the familiar in her, it actually took over, and she actually awakened this like new familiar inside of Kojo. Now I thought that the familiar inside of her was the same one that we saw awaken in Kojo, but I do believe that they're different. They might look the same, but I do believe that they are different familiars though, because we see that the power of this familiar it's like healing, but it's like extreme healing, and I will get into that. And the power that we saw in Nagisa familiar is different, because the way that it beat Valder, I don't believe that it's from healing like that. But we see now that at Kojo, once he was back, he was definitely ready to fight. And we see, like always, he was saying that this was his fight, but Yukina never lets him fight alone. So she was saying that it's their fight. And so we see Ko, he now appeared, and even though he knew the truth, he didn't know what else to do, so he had no choice but to go out and and fight for the Wiseman. And so we have Yukina versus Ko here, and Yukina easily defeated him once she had her spear. And Ko was actually fine with dying, because he only wanted the desire to be a human, not to really become one. So he was content with dying. And we see Kojo here, summon all these familiars. And even though we didn't see him fight, the fact that he summoned them, in one motion like that, that right there was pretty freaking badass. But now we see that this new familiar is the 11th one, and I'm not really sure how to say her name, but we see now that it can kind of like reverse time, and it can like take away damage or healing or whatever injuries you might have. Think of it like Orihime from Bleach. That basically a power that like this familiar had, and we see now that it was able to rewind the body of Wiseman to the point that it didn't exist. But it did actually, that metal that was left behind, it was actually stood around. And we see that Nina here, she actually absorbed all that metal, and we see now for her in her original form. But she actually, a lot smaller. And Konan here, she actually wanted to take her home. Well, she's going to ask Natsuki here if she could take her home. And it was just hilarious, because Nina got angry and said, don't treat her like a pet. But she's so small that it's kind of weird. I am kind of hoping that like something can be done so that she will have like she will be an original height. But the fact that that she's gonna stay in the story, it is rather interesting. But I do wonder about Isagi because after Nina had left her, we just saw her on the ground with like the hole in her chest where the core would be. So I do wonder, when she wakes up, will her body be healed, or will she even like remember anything? Because that one I'm definitely curious about. But now we have everybody being rescued by the airship that we originally saw from La Folia, and that right there is where the episode ends. And now from this, after the credits, we see that Yukina here is not going to leave Kota's side at all because she was saying, she had left him for a day and look what happened. So now she had to step up. She had to step up her observation of him, and clearly, like that was just an excuse. We all know that Yukina she wants to stay by his side. But now from the preview of this episode, it seems that these two characters, they actually could be in us like splitting ways, and that right there will be interesting. But like I said, this episode was very good. We got to see a new familiar, and we're now moving on to a new arc. And this familiar, it definitely seems like very OP. This is probably the most powerful familiar that we have seen so far. Well, except for the one that's in Nagisa. That one right there is probably the most powerful one because she has like a mind of its own, and it's living inside Nagisa. But as always, please do not forget to like the video and subscribe because it really helps me out. And you guys take it easy, and I will see you all next time.